All right, so this video is all about the 5 worst things about living here in the city of Murrieta, California. And I'm gonna give you some perspective from someone that's lived here in the Valley for a really long time. I think it's a great place to live, but it's not necessarily gonna be perfect for everybody. So let's go ahead and get into the video. Hey guys, hey again, my name is Justin Short. I'm a realtor and team leader with the Short Real Estate team here at Keller Williams in Temecula, and this video is all about the 5 worst things about living here in the city of Murrieta. So I've lived here in the Valley for a really long time, so it's over 25 years now. I lived in Temecula, I lived in Winchester, and we lived in Murrieta for about, I think it's like 12, 13 of those years, so about half of my time. So I think I can give you some really good perspective from what it's like to actually live here and really what the worst parts are about living here in the city. So I'll give you the disclaimer. I think this is a great area to live. This is where my wife and I are raising our family. We have 2 young kids, and it's where we plan to stay for the next 20 plus years, maybe forever. But I think it's a great place to live. However, it's not going to be perfect for everybody, right? Not everyone is going to like all the same things that you like or have the same priorities. And there are people that come here that just decide living in Murrieta is not the perfect place for them. So I'm going to give some perspective on really kind of what the downsides are and what the worst parts are of actually being here. I think they're manageable, but hopefully be good information for you guys. But before I can get into all the information, if you are liking real estate videos like this, please do me a favor. Please hit like, please hit subscribe to the channel. Obviously it helps me and it helps my channels. We try to continue to grow it. And then we have new videos that we put out each and every week. So it's all local based real estate info like this. So, best parts of town, worst parts of town, best neighborhoods, best school districts, all those different types of things. So if you want more of that, like I said, please hit subscribe and you'll see new videos each and every week. And then if you guys have any real estate questions, you can feel free to reach out anytime. So you can see my information either down below or at the end of the video. You're gonna see my name, my phone number, my email. You can feel free, you can call, text, you can email me. Happy to answer any questions you may have, help point you in the right direction. Or of course, if I can help you out with your real estate search, I'd love to be a resource for you. So that's how I earn a living. So I'd love the opportunity to help. So cool. All right, and let's go ahead and we'll get into my list. So again, we're gonna talk about the 5 worst things about living here in the city of Murrieta. And like I mentioned, I've lived here for a really long time. I think it's a great place. And I guess first I'll give you some positives. People decide to come here to live in Murrieta because we're in Southern California, we're in Southwest Riverside County. So you can stay in Southern California, you can be in a relatively newer area that is a very safe area. Murrieta specifically is consistently one of the top 100 safest cities in the country. So they've been anywhere from, I think they were number 2 at one point, from the top 10, top 20, top 100, but they're consistently a very, very safe area to live in. Also, compared to other parts of Southern California, that's really affordable. So you can buy the average home in Murrieta, you can buy for about $750,000. And if you compare that to the other areas like say San Diego, LA, Orange County, the average homes there are all over $1 million. And not only that, that $1 million home in San Diego is probably going to get you like 1,000 square feet, 1,200 square feet, and it was built in the 60s or something like that, as opposed to the average home in Murrieta is probably like 2,800 square feet or bigger. It was probably built in like 2002, 2003. So that means tile roofs, newer plumbing, all types of different things. It's also part of a great school district, and it's a safe area. So there are a lot of reasons that people decide to live here, including myself and my family. But I wanted to give you some of the negatives and kind of what the worst parts are of actually living here. So number 1 on my list, and I think most people would agree, probably the worst part about living here in Murrieta is going to be the heat and the temperature. So a lot of people think Southern California, it's all just cool beach weather, and we're pretty inland. We are only about 45 minutes to an hour away from the beach, so not super far. It's really easy to make a trip out there, but we do not have the same temperature. So the throughout a lot of the year, probably 9 months of the year, including winter, the temperature here is really, really nice. It's going to be somewhere from the mid 70s to mid 80s on average, so it's super pleasant outside. But in the summer, it definitely gets hot, and the two hottest months of the year are going to be August and September. The stats show the average temperature during those months is about 91, 92 degrees. However, as someone that's lived here, I think that feels a little bit low. Like if you ask me, I would think the average temperature is like 95, 96. But so it feels like it's a little bit warmer, and it seems like we constantly are seeing higher numbers than that. And we're going to have heat waves, and you're definitely going to have heat waves over 100 degrees. So on a heat wave, you can get up to 100, 101, 102, 103, and occasionally even up to 104. If it gets that hot, that's like super, super miserable, even for me, someone's been here for a long time, but they do happen. And so over 100 is going to be, it's hot. Like I'm warm-blooded, I've lived here for a long time, like it's hot. So on those hot days and during those summer months, really you're staying inside, during the afternoon time. You'll go outside in the morning, you'll go outside later in the evening, but in the afternoon, from 11 to 3, like it's hot. You're gonna come inside, you're gonna get in the AC, you're gonna crank the AC in the car. You're not gonna spend a lot of time outside in the afternoon unless you're out at the pool or something similar. However, what is really nice here, and this is not the case in most hot areas, well, even if we'll get a nice heat wave, it gets up to 102 degrees in the afternoon. By the evening, it is usually really cool and comfortable outside. So you can get up to 102 degrees in the afternoon, and it'll come down to 73, 74, 75, even 70, 69 degrees in the evening by about 6 o'clock or so. And the reason for that is because we are not that far from the coast, as a crow flies and as a straight line, right, as they say. So what happens is later in the day we do get a nice breeze that comes up over the mountain range, comes down into town, cools off all that hot air and makes it really cool and comfortable. It's also very dry. There's not much humidity out here. So because of that, it makes for really nice, comfortable evenings, and it is still really nice outside. So I think it's palatable, right? But there's a couple months here it's pretty hot. I definitely, I have some clients that they take a lot of vacations in the summer because it's hot and kind of can be a little bit miserable during the day. But the fact that it cools down, I think, is a big plus. Especially, it is so rare compared to like so many hot areas, like say like Palm Springs or Las Vegas or Arizona or anything like that, where it gets scorching hot out there and it never stops, right? You can go outside there at midnight and it's still 99 degrees out there in Palm Springs. Like it's miserable. It's a different type of heat for sure. So, but I would say that's definitely number one for most people, especially when they're moving from other parts of Southern California and they're used to that mid 70s weather all the time. Number two is second worst part about living here, and I think this is number one on a lot of people's list, is going to be the traffic. So although we are in Southern California, I think most people kind of have an understanding and have heard Southern California traffic is severe. There's a lot of it, and we are not as bad as the big cities like LA primarily, or even San Diego for that matter. But there is a good amount of traffic, especially at rush hour. And if you're a commuter on a daily basis, that can really eat into your quality of life. So most people, they are making a commute out of town. We'll kind of talk about that here in a minute, but most people do live here and commute. Most of them go south towards San Diego, but some people do go toward Orange County, towards LA. They go up towards the city of Riverside. But a lot of people are on the road on a daily basis. And that average drive time is anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes is what most people have. And that's each way. So, if you're lucky enough, you have a flexible schedule, you can go early, you can go later, you can dodge some of that, terrible traffic time. But if not, you're going to be stuck in that rush hour traffic, and it definitely is getting worse and worse each and every year as the area continues to grow. So if you are a commuter, then this is probably number one on your list. The traffic and that commute drive time can really suck. Like there's just no really getting around it. And then even on the weekends, you'll see the traffic, the freeway will jam up. A lot of people heading out of town, people heading out to the beach or down to the city or wherever it is they may be going. So they're there is a pretty good amount of traffic that's here in the area. So although we are here in Southern California, I think that's a pro, right? You're about an hour away from all the other cool stuff that Southern California has to offer. So that's like downtown San Diego, the beach, Disneyland, getting close to some parts of LA, out to the desert. With that traffic, it can make a difference and will definitely add up. Okay. Number 3 on my list of the worst parts about living here in Murrieta is going to be the lack of local jobs. So when I say this, I got to give some caveat, but most I would say primary income earners for their household do not work locally and will either they work remotely, so they work from home, or they will end up commuting to work for their daily job. So when I say this, there is, it kind of makes it sound like the city is super small, and that's not the case. In Murrieta, there's over 100,000 people that live here, and then in the surrounding areas, just the surrounding couple cities, there's over 500,000 people. So it is a grown area. Like there's a ton of shopping centers and doctor's offices and multiple Costco's and schools and all those different types of things. So it's not like this small dinky area, but there's just not a lot of big employers, right? There's not like these big mass employers that employ a large portion of the city. And although there are a lot of like conveniences like shopping centers and grocery stores and doctors and all the hospitals and all those types of things, there's not like the big industry, I would say. So because of that, people, they work here and they commute, or unless you're lucky enough to be able to work from home. So, and it kind of ties in, right? If there's not those local jobs, that means you're going to be on the freeway, sitting in the traffic, dealing with the rush hour traffic. So those kind of play together. Now there are a ton of local jobs, restaurants, and like I said, doctors' offices and hospitals, and nursing jobs, and all those different schools and education jobs. All those different types of things are here, but I would say most people, at least one of the, if they're working household, at least one of the spouses end up making a commute, unless you're lucky enough to be able to work from home. Number 4, as far as worst part about living here in Murrieta, I'll kind of tie this together, just overall California politics. I think it can be a little bit frustrating. I don't think you should really care necessarily what my political beliefs are, but there can be some frustrations and downside to living in the state of California with some of the things that are out there. So, like for example, high taxes. We have high taxes on a lot of different things. There's a lot of different fees, registration fees, all types of different things that are out there that California has that most, or if not all other states do not have. There's also high income taxes here in the state of California. So if you live, let's say in Arizona, where there's no state income tax, if you move to California, there is a 13% income tax. So that is a big difference in quality of life, right? You got to think about that if you are relocating to a different area. And then not only this, I would kind of tie into the California politics would be just the overall red tape that you'll find. There's high cost to develop if you're trying to build something and try to do construction. There's a lot of hoops and steps that you have to jump through that aren't necessarily there in other areas. And each of those hoops and steps tend to cost more money, right? There's some survey and some inspection they have to have, and some hoop and a lot of things that come into effect and that do cost money. So because of those things, that can be a real downside, and things that maybe people don't want to deal with, and they might be used to maybe living in Texas where they don't have to deal with that. So those are things to keep in mind if you are going to be moving to California. If you already live here, that's probably not much of a concern. You're probably already kind of aware of what that looks like. But there is definitely a sunshine tax that's in place from extra costs, extra red tape, and just extra taxes in general, right? And then the last one on my list is number 5, is the overall cost of living and really cost to purchase a home in this area compared to the rest of the United States. So we talked about price point. So your average home in Murrieta right now is about $750,000. You can buy a single family home for somewhere $625,000, $650,000. You can buy a condo or townhome in the mid 5s or even under $500 for like a true condo. So you can find things that are more affordable. So compared to the rest of Southern California, I think it's a pretty good deal, right? I think it's pretty good value. I think, you know, buying a small single family home in Murrieta for $650,000 compared to $1 million down in San Diego, I think it's a really good value. I think it's probably a nicer area to live in. It's a safer area to live in, you know, better school district. I think there's so many good things there. However, if you are moving from another state that is quite a bit less expensive, it can be really hard to make the jump to coming to live in the city of Murrieta, right? The average priced home throughout the US is about $440,000. That's the last number I saw. So if you're going from $440 to the low end out here, $650, the average is like $750, right? That's a big swing. Not only that, you got to factor in, you know, you have the income taxes that are coming, some other, you know, other taxes that are going to be in place here, a little bit higher property taxes, depending where you're coming from. There's just a lot of factors. So it can be really difficult for people to move from other parts of the country to Murrieta, California, because the cost of living is so much higher for the cost to purchase a home, just, you know, overall home price, plus all those other things to talk about, you know, income taxes, you know, fees, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, those are my top 5 as far as the worst parts about living here in Murrieta. It's the heat, it's the traffic, not a ton of local jobs, the overall California politics and taxes and fees and, you know, cost there, and then, you know, the average price point being so much higher than the rest of the U.S. So anyways, I hope that's good information for you guys. And I guess I'll give that caveat. Given all those things, I still think this is a great area to live in. This is where I plan to live long term. And I think there's going to be pros and cons to anything. I think these are all things that are worth it to live here in Murrieta. And I do think it's a great place to live in. But, you know, feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and hopefully talk to you soon. Thanks.